Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
That kid is back on the escalator again.
Ain't gonna hurt.
Here's my boomstick!
Game over, man. It's game over.
Welcome to The Bargain Bin. He's your host, Ben Mason.
And he is your co-host, Sandra Luketic. And today we're talking 1985's Fright Night.
1985?
Yeah.
Oh no, I watched the 2011.
Yeah, you fucking had me for 1 second there, man.
We assume if you're listening to this episode, you've already seen the movie.
Oh, thank you. Switching it up.
Well, I cut you off when you started it, so I figured
now I'm off my game. Jesus. Yes, 1985's Fright Night. I was almost debating the next one I picked being 2011 just to make you compare, but I'm not going to do that to you. But yeah, we're stuck in the 80s still with the directorial debut of director and writer Tom Holland. I know for a fact. No, not that Tom Holland.
He went from director to
Spider-Man?
preteen actor?
Yeah.
Stop saying Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man.
It's the curious case of Tom Spider-Man.
His name's not Spider-Man.
Sure. Tom
All
Spider-Man.
right, go ahead with whatever you were about to say. That was going to be probably ridiculous.
No, this is, in my opinion, like I'm giving away my opinion from the very beginning. This is my favorite comedy horror vampire film of all time. Actually, no, it's my second favorite vampire movie of all time. So I'm really curious to see what you think. Hopefully you had some laughs or at least some nods to give it, because I feel like it does have a lot of strengths. But
I'm curious what your favorite is.
My favorite is 1992's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I haven't seen that one either.
Yeah. It's great because it, in my opinion, it is probably the greatest love story ever put to film using the Dracula base story. But if you read the book, there's no romance there. They totally added that in, and that's what stole the show. It's great.
Oh, okay. I guess maybe one day I'll find out. You know, other than a slight reprieve of doing Suburban Commando, the last 3 out of 4 movies we done were 1986, 1985, 1985.
I like the 80s.
Clearly.
Now, there's something magical about filmmaking in the 80s. I don't know if it was the freedom to do what you want. You could be creative, go a little outside of the box of like popular Hollywood, have fun with the movies. Honestly, there's a lot you could have gotten away with then that you can't now. But I feel like that was the last decade where you could randomly pick a movie and you could see everybody involved as having a really fun time. And I think you can see that for sure here.
Who's to say in 20 years they're not saying, oh man, the 2020s was the last time they were able to really do what they wanted. We don't.
Oh, yeah, give me one example.
Fright Night.
Well done. Nailed that one.
The other Tom Holland movie, Spider-Man.
Which Spider-Man? There's so many Spider-Mans.
The 2020 one.
Oh, yeah, the 2020 Spider-Man? Got me there.
All right, let's just
wait for the 2023 Superman.
I'm not watching.
It's going to be great.
No, it's not.
Okay. So, again, I know we start off every episode this way. You haven't seen this before, right?
Oh, come on, man. How about I just tell you when I've seen a movie before?
I guess. So the answer is no, you have not seen this before, and you had not heard of this before.
I mean, I had heard of the name. I'd seen the movie poster, that kind of red, shadowy figure above the house. It's a fairly recognizable cover from, the video store shelves and things like that, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's very recognizable. It was blue, not red.
In my mind, I pictured blue and I said red. So clearly that's where my brain is tonight.
That's fine. Sorry, I won't keep... Well, actually, yeah, I'm going to keep picking at you, but we'll get into that.
Come on, man. Give me a break.
All right. We'll just hop right into it, okay?
Another question you ask me every week, like I'm going to say no.
Yeah. End of the show.
End of the movie, or end of the
End of the. Yeah. How about you? What do you say? We get into it now? Fuck you, we're done.
Credits roll.
Episode 68. We almost made it. Moving on.
Yes.
The film opens with Charley Brewster, played by William Ragsdale, and Amy Peterson, played by Amanda Bearse. I have in quotes, watching a horror film on late night TV. They're just making out on the floor next to the bed. I don't know why they're not on the bed, but okay.
They're using the bed as cover in case the mom comes in and they have a second to gather themselves.
They're going at it pretty heavy, though. At that point, I'd be like, if you're committed like that, commit to being caught. That's fine.
Man, I'm just guessing. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, and it's a reasonable guess. It's just, I don't know.
I mean, it's completely negated in a few minutes.
Totally. But yeah, the program they're watching is Fright Night, which is a late night horror show hosted by iconic horror actor Peter Vincent, played by Roddy McDowall. Do you recognize Mr. McDowall?
Come on, man. We're not even 10 minutes in. Why are you doing this to me?
So you don't remember him as the pervy principal from Cutting Class?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. I thought you would get a good laugh out of that. I stand corrected.
I don't think I've seen Cutting Class.
Oh, shut up. In the horror movie that's on Fright Night, did you notice how Peter within the movie is holding the stake before he attacks a vampire?
No.
Point is pointing at his face.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's great.
He's eyeing it up, taking a quick close one eye look at it. Yeah, it looks sharp.
It looks sharp. And we can't not acknowledge the fact that this is such a similar scenario to Once Bitten, with the sexual frustration between the couple. Except,
geez, does this guy get a lot more aggressive?
Yeah. But she does too. It's almost negated. It's stated, and then they both get over it, and that's the end of that.
I don't know, man. I could understand her being more aggressive due to being defensive. Like, Jim Carrey gets frustrated and leaves the car. This dude's just flat out yelling at her.
Yeah, he is. He's pretty aggressive.
At this point, I was like, oh my God, we're not doing this again, are we? Like another protagonist that I absolutely hate?
No, I spared you from the hateful protagonist this time.
It's weird, too, because, yeah, I didn't hate him except for this moment. And then after that, they're just like, yeah, we'll just make him a lot more reasonable.
Yeah, like when I was watching this to do the notes, he did that. I'm like, oh, fuck you, dude. And then the next time, I'm like, yeah, Charlie's kind of cool. We've been manipulated, Sandro.
Yeah.
Charlie sees his neighbors carrying what could be a coffin through the yard.
All right, not what could be. It is a coffin.
It is, but we're led to believe that he might have seen something else and just assumed it was a coffin.
Keeping in mind that this is after Amy had agreed to have sex with him and climbed into the bed.
And yeah, like she's understandably upset that he's all of a sudden ignoring her after basically pressuring her into sex.
Well, again, negating the fact that they were behind the bed if now they're just going to climb right in.
And that's what I was saying. Why bother? Tom Holland directorial debut.
Here's what I was thinking. This guy's clearly a jerk when it comes to sex. And he just pressured her into agreeing after, I don't know what he says, like, we've been going for a year or something like that.
Yeah.
If he is distracted enough to not be like diving headfirst into that bed the second she touches sheets, maybe she should be like, there must be something legit going on. This is no way he's just going to drop it like that.
Yeah. I should say too that in the book, they've only been together for 3 months. Makes it even worse. What was I thinking?
I don't know. Good defense, man. Oh, in that case, yeah, it's totally cool that he yells at her.
Dude, it's 11:30 my time. I've been up since early this morning. I'm overly caffeinated. Let me be.
Okay.
On Amy's way out the door, they're stopped by Charlie's mother, Judy, asking about their lovers' quarrel. Like, all right, she obviously doesn't care, so don't waste your time on the floor, kids.
Yeah. And like she asks if something's wrong. He's like, no, we're good. It's like, there's no way anybody's buying that. You guys came down the stairs yelling at one another. You're
This
not
is
good.
Standard 1980s American teenage relationships.
That's how they talk to one another, right?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Now I see.
And Judy lets us all know about the new guy next door who fixes up houses. And while she's doing that, the TV informs us of a local murder. And Charlie's still really obsessed over something he saw outside. I have something in quotations because he's just like peering out the window, ignoring everything.
And nobody questions it. Nobody's like, that's odd behavior. Why don't we go take a look? Even when they were upstairs, he's practically begging Amy, which clearly she's gotten used to at this point, to come to the window and look at what is going on. Yeah. He's just like, oh, no, I'm not. You're messing with me. It's like, seriously, just come here and look.
And that's a theme that we see throughout the movie, is that nobody believes him about anything until it's too late. Not at all. Like he's trying to back up statements with facts, and everyone's like, "You're just crazy."
Yeah.
The next day at school, we're introduced to evil Ed Thompson, played by Stephen Jeffries. I can tell by that sigh that you love evil Ed.
No comment yet.
Charlie returns home and meets a sex worker looking for the neighbor's house.
Broad daylight.
Yeah, played by Playboy playmate Heidi Sorensen. Yeah. Charlie then asks his mother if she met the new neighbor. But I have to say, like, the state of Charlie's car when he pulls into the driveway from school, that car is beat to shit.
Oh, he's a teenager. He probably got it in that condition because that's all he could afford.
Trivia, that's actually the director's car.
Well, I mean, maybe he wasn't very successful prior to this movie. I don't know.
No. But yeah, when Charlie asks Judy if she met the neighbor, do you remember her reaction? It really caught me off guard.
No.
She's like, no, but I hear he has a live-in carpenter. With my luck, probably gay. Judy.
Yeah, not based on the lady of the night that just walked in there in broad daylight.
We get a really cool stinger next of later that night, Charlie hearing the scream from next door. And that one scene fully belongs in a horror film. It was effective. It was shot really well. His reaction was great. And then it just cuts to the next day.
The thing I don't understand about scenes like that is, why is it the protagonist is the only one that ever hears them?
That's a very good question.
Like, if it's loud enough that it is coming from one house to the other, like, do they have no neighbors on the other side? Is there, like, I get it. It's a movie, but it's just, come on.
Yeah, and this is another suburban horror film, which I've already talked to, numerous times about loving. It's actually filmed on the same backlot that they shot The Burbs on. But yeah, you really need to ignore the fact that people live in every building in that area, so somebody would hear something. It's just plot convenience.
Yeah, nobody else saw the prostitute getting out of the taxi. Nobody else saw a coffin being carried. Nobody heard the scream. No. It's only ever, what is it, Charlie? Yeah,
Charlie.
It's Charlie.
Charlie Brewster. And I think the reason why it's such a short scene is so we don't question that, because it just cuts immediately to the next day with Charlie and Amy making up.
Clearly, they did not know that I would be watching this movie 37 years later.
Oh, yeah. The Croatian Canadian cynic. That's what we should have named this podcast. Yeah, they make up very quickly, which is strange, because if you were Amy, be like, you pressured me into this.
It doesn't feel like they made up to me. It feels very tense still.
Oh, and it gets worse. I guess she was just trying to make it work, but knew that nothing had been solved.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they made up. I just think it felt like, okay, we're acknowledging that we're not going to break up, but we're not through the woods yet.
Okay. TV report covers the murder of the woman Charlie saw the day before. And Evil Ed regales in the fact that both corpses had their heads cut off. They're both so enamored with the TV broadcast that Charlie doesn't notice Amy grabs somebody's sloppy Joe and she just crams it into his face. Fine, I get it.
But even if there's no pre-context to like how enamored he was with looking out the window at the coffin the other night, he's watching a news report about a murder in the local area where someone got their head cut off.
Yes.
I would understand if somebody was a little preoccupied by that. It's like, oh, yeah, I live around there.
Yeah. And not only that, it's the second murder in, I think, 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
I'd be concerned. Sandro, if we're ever hanging out and like a murder TV news report pops on screen, please don't jam a sloppy Joe in my face.
I mean, that would imply that I have a sloppy Joe. And if I have a sloppy Joe, I'm eating a sloppy Joe. Don't be ridiculous, man.
Let's just say food in general. Just don't. Okay, tell you.
You know what? If I'm visiting you and it's like garlic fingers or something, no.
Yeah, you hoard that shit. Just how about this? If we're watching TV and a news report comes on about somebody being murdered, don't fucking touch me. Good
deal. You sure raised the stakes there.
And then we get the classic line from Evil Ed making fun of Charlie with, "Oh, you're so cool, Brewster." Now, don't spoil this now, but I have a note here saying, is Evil Ed the most annoying character ever?
Yes.
I repeat, don't spoil this now. But yeah, no, I'm right there with you.
And I don't know how you can call that a classic line. To me, that's a classic trying to make a cool line that just makes you want to face palm.
No, that is a classic line for this movie. This movie is a cult classic, and everybody knows, "Oh, you're so cool, Brewster."
Mm-hmm.
What? I'm not lying. You just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you know.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie returns home. The guy inside the basement of the neighboring house is Billy. And he's painting the windows black and sees the nosy Charlie, who's decided to scope out the basement for some reason.
Well, that's where he saw the coffin being carried in.
Still, if you saw something weird going on next door and like the neighbor's house, you'd be like, I'm just gonna sneak into the basement.
No, absolutely not. Especially if it was a coffin that I saw being carried in there.
Yeah. Again, comedy, we really shouldn't look too much into it.
Sure.
But that night, Charlie sees the neighbor, Jerry Dandridge, played by Chris Sarandon, seduce a girl. Jerry sprouts fangs and is about to bite her, but notices Charlie spying on him and closes the blinds. Charlie runs outside to spy even more, and his mom outs him to the neighbors.
I guess they hadn't gotten around to painting that window black yet, huh?
No. Wide open, directly looking across the way into Charlie's room. But we've got the scene of Billy carrying the body out of the house. We see the point of view of Jerry as a bat flying from the rooftop down to the ground, and we don't see him turn back into a humanoid form, but he does. And I love how we see him eating an apple.
He eats a lot of fruit in this movie. He
does eat a lot of fruit, and it was a bit of a character development that Chris Sarandon did. And his thing is like, Jerry should always be eating some kind of fruit, like apples, like just slices or something, because he's got some fruit bat in him. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Get into that character. It's a little weird though. But Charlie does one of the smartest things we've ever seen a horror film character do here.
Okay.
He calls the police.
Yeah, except that if somebody actually does that in a horror, it never works out in their favor.
Oh, and it doesn't here at all either. We get homicide detective Lennox, played by Art Evans, who checks out the house, and all seems on the up and up, so he just leaves.
So, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't he?
Yeah. And Billy looms on the balcony staring at Charlie. But do you think Charlie went too far by calling the police? Do you think he should have like investigated a bit more? Because this is all a hunch and like hearsay on his part.
I don't know, man.
That's very interesting, very deep.
Maybe if the detective is investigating and it's not going the way that he's hoping, don't try to stop him by yelling that it's a vampire.
Yeah, probably shouldn't yell the V word. Charlie goes to tell Ed about the vampire next door. Ed gives him a cross, tells him it only works if you have faith, and tells him to get garlic enough to hang around your neck and get holy water, and tells him that a vampire can't enter the house without being invited in by the rightful owner.
So typical vampire lore from the 80s.
Yes. Paired with quite possibly the worst acting ever.
Did the garlic ever get used? I don't remember ever seeing Charlie get garlic.
He did have it when he was prepping his room. Later on, we see like all of the candles and everything. But why are we supposed to know that Ed believes or Ed knows anything?
He's evil, Ed, you see.
Yeah.
So he follows things that are evil and of the occult.
You see, I just found it really strange because we're the ones that see Charlie watching Fright Night, not Ed. So you think Charlie would know this more?
I mean, is Charlie really watching Fright Night? He's got it on.
He's getting bits and pieces of it, I'm sure.
Uh-huh. He's a little preoccupied, man.
I understand. That night, Charlie is nailing his window shut, and Judy calls him downstairs to meet the new neighbor who she invited in for a drink.
I saw that coming so quickly.
I loved it, though.
Immediately.
It was great. I loved it.
So his mom didn't care that there was any noise or anything like that. He was nailing a window shut. Are hammers and nails quiet?
I don't think it matters. I think
Does she care? Does she care about anything he does?
Judy is inviting over the neighbor who she thinks might be gay, but still she's going to give it a shot.
I mean, you got to find out. It could just be speculation, right?
Yeah, I don't think she's really paying attention to what her son's doing upstairs.
Okay, but like, we're 2 for 2 now. She didn't care about the other night.
Mm-hmm.
Like, tonight, he's nailing the window shut. Last time, I don't know if it was the night before or a few nights before, he was trying to nail his girlfriend.
Yeah. Common theme here.
Yeah, she just doesn't hear or care about what's going on.
But she does because she has Jerry there. Oh, this is quite the conundrum. What do you think of Chris Sarandon here?
I thought he was fantastic. He has a command of the camera as soon as he leans forward in that chair. Even though you know that it's going to be him, it's very predictable. When he leans forward, it just draws your attention. He is very charismatic.
I have hilarious and charismatic villain. And yeah, he commands your attention. And I was like, all right, Judy, I see what you're looking at here. He's perfectly cast as Jerry Dandridge.
Mm-hmm.
Later that night, Charlie sneaks around the house, making sure Jerry isn't inside. And Jerry turns up in Judy's bedroom and just stares at her before leaving and breaking the door so it's jammed shut.
Which she doesn't wake up to at all.
Yeah. Which goes against our nailing theory.
Why? He only nailed his window, not his mom's.
I don't like the direction we're going here. Moving on. He then hides in Charlie's room until their inevitable confrontation and fight. Why? Why hide?
I don't know, but it was a pretty sweet scene watching Charlie come back in. He picks up the binoculars, and then in the background, the camera's still out of focus. You see the door open.
Of the closet, yes.
He slowly emerges out as the camera starts to now focus on him. Fantastic camera work, really.
It really is, yeah.
The fight, on the other hand, I did not like so much.
There were elements I liked. I liked Charlie getting thrown through the closet itself. I thought that looked great.
Jeez, what a move.
Yeah.
Charlie's just a regular kid. I mean, we assume he's a high schooler, right?
Yeah.
Like, he got thrown upside down through that closet. Just takes out the whole thing. It's like, I don't think he would have gotten up that quickly.
I don't know. It looks like a standard upbringing for me.
And in this scene, I was like, Jerry is so reasonable.
He is very reasonable for a villain. I've never
seen a movie like this before with like a vampire where he's like, listen, we don't have to do this. You forget about what you saw, I'll forget about you. In my mind, I'm like, just take it.
Yeah, that's a fucking great deal, man. He's already thrown you through half of your room. Just be like, yeah, good, glad. I'll close the window, pull the blinds. Quick request, can you please do the same? But yeah, he just lays down the law.
Yeah, but no, Charlie's response is to stab him with a pencil.
It's to pull out a cross first, which does nothing.
Because he doesn't believe in it.
It's true. And I mean, really, who does? But we get the window scene next where he like shoves him out the window halfway, like hanging on to him. But you see Amy's picture fall out. And I really liked how this was filmed because like the picture in frame tumbles out the window and falls and is impaled on a fence post.
Yeah.
Looked really cool. And then Charlie, like, he's reaching for whatever he can grab to defend himself, knocks over his pencil jar, grabs a pencil and stabs Jerry in the hand with it. And he freaks the fuck out. I'm going to say right now, I love the vampire effects in this movie. The makeup effects are fantastic.
I disagree with you 100%.
That's fine.
I'm very much not a fan of the vampire effects. When he has like the elongated fingers, the fangs, and the red eyes, perfect.
It's the extended Frankenstein forehead you don't like?
Correct. If they had just, and honestly, it probably would have even cut down on their budget, just done the fingers, fangs, and eyes. Yeah. Kind of like Lost Boys, not even doing like the practicals for the foreheads or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had no complaint. But when and luckily he doesn't go full vampire too many times, but when he does, I do not like the look of it. And not even just from like a technical standpoint, it's the 80s, they couldn't have done better. I just didn't like the art direction of it. I don't think it was a very good creative decision.
Interesting. I really enjoyed it. I'm with you on the Frankenstein forehead, but I really dug it. I thought it worked quite well. You're right too. Like the vampire hands are good. I mean, you gotta love a good vampire finger, right? But they nailed it with this. And did you notice the look on Jerry's face when Judy starts pounding on her door?
No.
He looks terrified.
Really?
Yeah, he's like, oh fuck, she's awake. Like this plan's falling apart horribly fast.
I'm surprised.
But you have to keep in mind, the whole point of him staying there or sneaking back into the house was to be like, look, kid, let's just live peacefully. Let's coexist. Then it gets violent. He's like, I didn't want this. He's like, and now I woke up your fucking mom. Oh, God damn it.
How do you not expect that to happen?
Yeah.
Look at the noise you have made. You've smashed an entire closet. You have broken a window. And I guess the picture going out and impaling the fence wouldn't have made a lot of noise, but you are not doing quiet activities here.
Yeah. And then he just like panics and like flees through the window, we assume in bat form. And then you hear what sounds like a bunch of garbage cans getting knocked over and then silence. And then the phone rings and Charlie answers it. That made me laugh out loud. It's just Jerry on the phone. He's like, what's the matter, Charlie? Scared? I just destroyed your car, Charlie. But that's nothing compared to what I'm going to do to you.
How can you tell you destroyed the car?
And that's just it, like the garbage cans, I guess. I'm like, that. What a great dick move. He's like, I offered you a chance, Charlie, and you said no. You made me wake up your mom, so I fucked up your car.
Maybe that first shot of Charlie driving home in his car, they accidentally filmed out of order and they had already destroyed the car.
Can you imagine? He calls, he's like, what's the matter, Charlie? Scared? I was just about to destroy your car, but looks like you beat me to it. But that's nothing compared to what I'm going to do to you. It's like, what, a bad paint job? Charlie sees a segment of Fright Night where Peter Vincent boasts about being a great vampire killer. Charlie's reactions track down the actor.
Come on, are we that stupid?
Apparently, yeah.
Like,
and it's such an awkward conversation, like the confrontation outside of the studio.
Like, I watch movies as a kid, right? If I'm like, oh no, my computer's broken, I need a hacker, I'm not going to go find Jason Lee or... Wait, what's his
Johnny
name?
Lee Miller?
Yeah, Johnny Lee Miller. Right?
Jason Lee. My computer's broken. I'm going to get Brody from Mallrats.
Hey man, I'd hang out with Brody and Mallrats any excuse I had.
The fuck is wrong with my laptop? Can someone get me a Scientologist? Yeah, Peter was fired from his job because of low ratings. I thought it was public access. Yeah, who gets fired from that? How bad do you have to be like, look, just like all of our other shows, you're not getting any ratings. We're going to have to let you go. Fine. All right. Then Charlie comes across as a crazed fan. But the weird thing here is that it's not really revealed until later. It's not explicitly shown, at least, that Peter doesn't believe that vampires exist. He's just creeped out by Charlie. I thought that was kind of a cool character element, but it's negated later on.
Well, it's like, kid, that's in the movies, right?
Yeah. He's such a proud, failed actor, though. The Peter Vincent character, I think, is quite cool. Charlie freaks out Amy and Ed with his vampire prep room. Now, this is when they go to visit him, and there are lit candles everywhere. I don't know how that room hasn't turned into a massive fire at this point.
Why is he lighting candles?
I don't know. I really don't know.
At no point in any of the information he was given were candles necessity.
Yeah, I like the smell.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where he's sharpening a stick or fence post or something into a stake. That's where he's got all of the garlic too.
Okay, I must have missed that, but
yeah. And he's just telling them that he plans on killing Jerry. And Amy goads him into trying to recruit Peter one more time before acting on those impulses. And this is the beginning of her plan.
He's an actor. He doesn't really fight vampires.
Yeah, I know. This is her plan, though. That she's aware of this. She knows that the guy who's trying to sleep with her, who she's been dating for a year, is batshit insane. And instead of leaving him and being like, I'm out of this, like, I don't want to be a part of this crazy person's relationship. I don't want to be part of his life. Thinks that vampires are real and he wants an actor to kill him. I'm just going to leave. She's like, you know what? I'm just going to pay off the actor and fulfill this kid's fantasy and then see where this crazy road takes me.
Okay, just pack your bags, lady. Leave them.
Get the fuck out. You're obviously at the tail end of high school. Just dig your heels in and be like, I can do this for one more year. I can just try and ignore him. I'll avoid him, and then I'm free.
Or he'll be in jail as he's sharpening a stake in an attempt to kill his neighbor.
Yeah. Keep in mind too, she's also hanging out with Evil Ed.
I wouldn't say they're hanging out. They're kind of just going to approach Charlie as a united front, right?
He's already there when she shows up.
Yeah. See, they're both just trying to do the same thing. And, okay, well, might as well work together.
The weird thing is, though, they seem more amicable than she does with Charlie, and then more so than he does with Charlie.
I don't know.
Me neither. Anyway, Amy and Ed go to talk to Peter Vincent. They want him to convince Charlie that he's imagining things. This proud actor states that he was offered a role in a movie and as such had to quit Fright Night, but jumps at the offer of Amy's $500 savings bond. It's good. The plan is Peter puts Jerry through tests to prove he's not a vampire. And I mean, any viewers like this, it's just not going to work. This is where he's exposed to everyone. Cut to Jerry's house where he gets a call from Ed about the test. He refuses to be around crosses and holy water, but agrees to faking tap water to be such. And they agree to meet at 6. I was originally confused by the clocks, which we see later on is used to signify the coming of dawn. But I think completely unnecessary. I would just imagine that a vampire would know. Just like in every other vampire film we have ever seen.
Yeah, he just likes clocks.
Maybe.
I like how they don't question at all. How he's like, yeah, no holy water.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, no crosses. Holy water, yeah, I can't do that.
It's like, if somebody called me and said, we want you to drink holy water to prove that you're not a vampire. Be like, okay, it's still just water, right? Like, it's not.
Yeah, I assure you, it's tap water.
Yeah, and he's like, no, can't do it. It's like, it seems a little odd that you would refuse that.
And I like this, though, because everybody else is so convinced that vampires don't exist. They're like, okay, well, what will you do to help us prove to your crazy neighbor who wants to kill you that you're not a vampire? So we have the meeting that night, and fuck, man, Jerry loves his apples. Patronizes Peter and his movies, but immediately falls in love with Amy. Charley, being crazy Charley, demands to know where the coffin is. Jerry seemed really ready to just drink that water, because he holds the vial up, looks at it, holds it in front of the fireplace, looks at it, and just drinks it. Like, that could have been over real quick had somebody blessed it.
Yeah.
Another scene with a cross, but Peter snatches it when Jerry backs up. He doesn't even notice that Jerry behind him starts backing up, which means that Charley does have faith in it. But Peter's like, oh God, this is part of the rules. No, the whole thing's going to go to shit. Grabs it. But then later, when Peter opens up his pocket mirror, notices that Jerry doesn't have a reflection. And the first thing he does is panics and flees, admitting to Charley later outside about the mirror.
Yeah, not the greatest actor at all.
No, not at all. But I really liked that reaction. And this is where I was saying earlier, like, how we never really knew if he did or didn't believe. This solidified the notion that, yeah, he thought vampires were fake.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because this throws him off entirely.
Yes. It also turns out, that Amy looks like Jerry's lost love, which Chris Sarandon had requested that be written into the film, and is also a major plot point in the Bram Stoker's Dracula film I was telling you about earlier. So obvious influence there. I love how Jerry discovered that Peter was onto him when he takes a step forward and steps on that one shard from the broken mirror.
Mm-hmm. Great
writing there. And I have a note here that just says, I love how this movie doesn't use the standard paranoia trope. Normally the lead would be gaslit into believing he's crazy. And here, Charlie's he knows he's right. He's convinced. He's just confused why nobody else believes him.
Especially now when he's got some proof.
Yeah. Charley and Ed walk Amy home, but Ed breaks away. He feigns an attack before actually being attacked by Jerry. And I do have to say, the first time I saw this way back when, I was like, finally, no more evil Ed.
Unfortunately, you're not so lucky.
I was very wrong. I do have to say, though, it was a really humanizing moment for him when Jerry tells him that nobody will ever make fun of him again. And he reaches out for Jerry's hand while he's crying. I was like, holy shit, this guy can actually act?
I'm not believing it, no.
I do, but only in this scene. Oh, wait, no. There is one more scene, too, but that's got some heavy audio effects.
I do love how they use the mist in these scenes.
Yeah.
It really makes me feel like Jerry's using mist form to get around.
Yeah, they do a good job of showing his different physical manifestations, which you really don't see done that well in other films. Charley and Amy get spooked and run into a club. Well, they try to, and they don't get in, so they run around the back of the alley, see Jerry, and then climb through an open kitchen window and into the club.
Yes, it looks like a takeout window.
It really does. And I don't know if this happens right here or after the next scene. It's after. All right, so we'll go with this. Ed tricks Peter into letting him into his apartment, and he reveals the bite on his neck and starts turning into... I didn't know what this was until later on in the movie, but I guess a werewolf thing? What? Anyway, Peter burns Ed by pressing a cross against his forehead. And I did like the line of, the master will turn you slowly, oh so slowly. But I think the only way you can make Stephen Jeffries' lines sound cool is by manipulating them with some extra effects, because I thought that was a good line.
Yeah, you can make them sound cool by having somebody else say them.
You could do that too, but
different actor altogether.
Yeah, well, I mean, poor Stephen Jeffries, he had an up and down career. Like, after this, I think he did 976 Evil, and then he went into a different genre of filmmaking. I think his most successful movie is called Mechanic by Day, Lube Job by Night.
All right, then.
Yeah, no joke. Amy reveals paying off Peter, and Jerry shows up wearing the most 80s cool guy sweater ever.
But he was rocking that 80s cool guy
He
sweater.
was fucking rocking it, but still, he was wearing a sweater to a club like that.
It's the 80s, dude.
I guess. Amy loves it, though. Amy's totally into it. She's completely entranced. They dance for a while, and Jerry kills 2 bouncers and then abducts her.
Like, right there in the club. Doesn't even try to hide it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Jerry doesn't give a fuck. Jerry's there to do what Jerry wants to do.
I thought he would show a little bit more tact.
No. Charlie's way too oblivious if he's that paranoid. I thought that was one weird flaw in the character. But he does manage to get through to Peter, but Peter's too traumatized after messing up Ed to even want to help. I do have to say, you haven't mentioned the soundtrack yet, but the soundtrack in this movie just keeps getting better and better. There's some great songs.
That's all right.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
It didn't really have a standout track that stuck with me.
Not even the title song?
No.
Wow. I love that song.
Well, you have a different connection to it than I do.
That's true. I have a long history with this film. One thing that confuses me, though, is if Peter managed to fight off Ed with the cross, there's only a matter of minutes before the end of the club scene, and Ed's in the back of the Jeep with Jerry and Billy and Amy. How'd that happen?
Magic.
Understood. Charlie meets Peter at his apartment and says Jerry will kill Amy unless they go to his house. How do we know that? Did I miss that line? I don't remember Jerry saying anything.
Me
you don't remember, do you?
No.
Okay. Peter admits that he's been playing a character, but Charlie boosts his confidence. Yet Peter still refuses to help. Amy awakens in Jerry's house wearing a flowing dress, and Jerry seduces her and bites her. And I have a note here: the soundtrack again! ! I don't know how this didn't get you, man. I thought it was great.
It was all right.
Charlie arrives at Jerry's, and Peter makes a surprise appearance shortly afterwards. A few notes, like I'm loving the slow build as they enter the house to explore. And as Jerry appears, he's got that single nail, that single claw dragging along the wooden banister, just shaving a single spiral off of it. That looked fantastic. Peter pulls a cross on him, but Jerry just crushes it because Peter doesn't have faith. Charlie pulls a cross and does have faith, though, and is much more effective at pushing back the vampire until Billy knocks him out. And then Peter flees out the front door and over to Charlie's house.
I've yet to mention that from the beginning of the movie, Billy kind of weirds me out with the way that he just stares. Something about the way he looks.
What, no one's ever stared at you from across the street?
I don't
giant
know.
Menacing structure.
He does a very good job of looking menacing because every time he just stares at Charlie, it like creeps me out.
He's doing a really good job this entire time.
Yeah.
I think
I don't
this
know how
is
we
his
didn't mention it
film
until
debut.
now.
Jonathan Stark plays Billy Cole, if you didn't mention it earlier. Props to that guy. Over at Charlie's house, Peter finds out that the phone line's been cut, and Ed has been laying in wait since Judy's been she's working the night shift, late shift. Convenient, because I don't think we ever really heard. Sorry?
Why would they think that they're going to go to Charlie's house?
Well, it kind of makes sense.
So if Peter didn't run into Charlie's house, and specifically Charlie's mom's room, he'd just be laying in bed there, chilling, waiting?
Probably. Bed looked comfy.
All right, then.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but I do like how the majority of the film takes place in these two next door to each other houses. Ed attacks Peter in wolf form, but is stabbed with a broken piece of wood, and we're led to believe he dies. A sick kill, though, man. You had to at least enjoy this, where the wolf rushes Peter. Peter pulls up that broken table leg and sticks him with it. The thing flies through the broken banister, hits the chandelier on its way down, and flops onto the floor.
I mean, it looked good. But
I thought it looked good. But
are we to believe that werewolves are now killed by being stabbed in the heart?
Well, the weird thing is that most of our knowledge of how monsters work in this world comes from film. So no, we shouldn't. And honestly, from what the stinger at the end of the movie tells us, it doesn't. I do have to say there is one shot here that made me feel a little ill. And it was after the wolf hits the floor. You just see it like dragging itself across the floor with its front legs, like its back end is completely paralyzed. And I know it's fake, but the way I glanced at the screen when it happened, it looked real to me, and I felt so sick to my stomach.
Yeah, I could see that, man.
But yeah, he slowly turns back into human form, and I really enjoyed. I'm sure you hated the effects here because that's you, but I loved the effects here of the transformation back to human. The sound's fucking killer. They cut away at the right times to cut back and show the transition. I guess they had like a weird puppet thing rigged up for it, and it didn't really work out well. So it actually is Stephen Jeffries under a lot of the prosthetics each time you see the shot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. Jerry presents Charlie with a turning Amy. He gives him a steak, telling Charlie he'll need it before dawn. Just such a heel move.
Oh, totally.
It's great. Jerry's so good, man. I mean, Jerry's so good at being evil. Peter heads back into Jerry's house with steak in hand. Charlie reveals Amy's condition, and to save her, they need to kill Jerry before dawn. Unfortunately for them, Jerry's aware that Peter came back. This scene is confusing to me because Peter shoots Billy on the stairs, and Charlie wards off Jerry with a cross. But Billy reanimates and then gets shot repeatedly, then is staked and oozes green slime and sand. What is Billy?
I was going to ask you that. I have no bloody clue.
Because he's not a familiar.
Mm-mm.
In the book, he's like 113-year-old servant to Jerry, who's like 400 years old. But it's still kind of confusing because it's almost like a new creature that we haven't encountered before. I'm cool with it. I just kind of wish they gave us a little bit more to go on.
Yeah, they gave us nothing.
And I felt sad. I really enjoyed Billy's character. I'm like, oh, I guess the movie is coming to a close and we need to dispatch these guys soon enough. But what a shit way to go.
Why not just make him a familiar? And yeah, he gets shot.
That would have been perfect.
I'm fine with that. I mean, There's a little bit of tension when he gets up the first time, but what is he? Why?
Yeah, and like being able to carry a body by himself, you're like, okay, maybe he's just strong. Like people can do that. If he is,
not to mention that like Jerry's victims have been like females that are what, like 110 pounds?
Maybe.
Right? Like, and you remove the head. That's
yeah.
I'm fairly certain I could throw one of those over my shoulder.
Oh yeah, for sure. Effortlessly, right? Macho Man.
I'm not a construct of some kind of green ooze and sand, but I'm confident that I could do it, especially if, I've been getting practice doing it every night for this guy.
Yeah, but imagine if you had that oozy slime sand strength. What the things you could do.
Yeah, I could throw Charlie's car and ruin it.
I just destroyed your car, Charlie. Joke's on you? That car's fucked. But, yeah, no.
Yes, insurance payout.
Thanks for the money, Jer. Yeah, I agree. They should have made Billy human. That would have been great. And just like a single shot. Maybe he survived the first shot and the second one took him down. But get rid of the ooze and sand.
If the first shot is not directly in the forehead, like, yeah, okay, you shoot him in the shoulder, your aim's not great, there's mist around, like whatever.
Yeah.
Then you can still have that moment where he reemerges coming up the stairs and he's just bleeding from the shoulder and you get to shoot him a second time, just like this. But I don't know, just an odd decision. I think one that we're hanging on for too long.
Agreed. But I think, as we've stated, like, this is the one time we agree that this is one change where the movie would have benefited from it.
Yeah.
Jerry commands Amy to kill both Charlie and Peter. And then Jerry attacks, smashing through a window, I guess, a little ahead of his own plan. Peter pulls out a cross, now having faith, I guess. The clock signal dawn, like we had mentioned before, and Jerry turns into a bat creature, attacking both of them and then hiding in the basement. The bat creature was a rejected puppet from Ghostbusters.
Oh, okay.
It was originally going to be the ghost from the library, but they thought it was too scary for the film. So they ditched it and then created a new one, which in my opinion was even more terrifying in Ghostbusters. Like, this thing looks so stupid.
That's a great reference to make. Because in the last movie, no, 2 movies ago, sorry, in Suburban Commando, we had the PKE meter.
Yeah.
And here we are now, 2 movies later, and we have a rejected puppet from the movie.
Yeah. I guess really what we're saying here is Ghostbusters is great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They investigate the basement, and Charlie runs into a vamped out Amy. Peter accidentally finds Jerry's casket. Amy goes full fucking vampire. And I think this is the best vampire makeup I have ever seen. It's fucking terrifying.
It's the best in this movie.
Okay, man. What is the best vampire makeup you've seen in a movie?
Oh, come on, man. I don't know.
You say it's the best in this movie. What are you comparing it to?
The other ones in this movie.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just stating it's the best one in this movie.
Yes, it is. But it's not the best vampire makeup you have ever seen.
Maybe, maybe not.
Oh, fuck you, man. Take a stand, Sandro. Jesus.
It's a stylistic choice, I think. I prefer the more subtle transformations, right? Like,
yeah,
Lost Boys pre-transformation with just the red eyes and the fangs. Subtle,
there
impactful.
You go. Perfect. Right. A stance. I can respect that, even if you're wrong. Peter stakes Jerry with no effect, but the boys smash open the painted windows, letting in the sunlight, eventually killing him and reverting Amy back to human.
This stake was horrible. It honestly looked like one of those, all right, I'll just hold it between my upper body and my arm gimmicks.
Yeah, basically.
That is nowhere near the heart, dude.
It was very weak. But it doesn't need to be near the heart, I guess, because Charlie stabbed him in the hand with the pencil, and that fucked him right up.
Yeah.
I guess the next night, Charlie and Amy are making out to the recently revived Fright Night TV show.
Why? Why was it revived? If he was fired for nothing related to this,
ratings.
Why is it?
Low ratings. You lose your job. What, did they just go around advertising that they killed an actual vampire? And they're like, well, I guess we're going to give you back your non-paying job on public access cable. Congratulations, Peter Vincent. But Charlie senses something is up, yet assures Amy everything's fine. Fades to black as we hear Ed in the darkness laugh and say, "You're so cool, Brewster."
Why?
Why indeed? Why tease Ed at the end of the movie and then follow it up with a sequel, which he is not in?
Well, I mean, that makes the sequel immediately better than it could have been. But
even if they included him and then actually killed him off in the beginning, You know, like give him the Drew Barrymore Scream treatment.
Nah, Ed sucks.
Yeah, Ed does suck. He's better in other movies, though. So I do have to say, like, maybe this is just pressure from Tom Spiderman to act a certain way. You want to get into the budget?
Why not have the tease be something with Billy? We've already shown that he's some sort of weird construct.
Honestly, I'd prefer having Jerry back.
Well, I mean, I'm saying like a quick cut of like Billy dragging a coffin or something like that.
Yeah. Here's a question.
Okay.
If Jerry fucked up Charlie's car, how did Judy not notice?
Because
Like
it
the
didn't
next
look
day.
any worse.
Yeah. Then he run outside and she's like, I think someone scratched your paint job. Yes, Mom. Thank you. But no, budget. Care to take a guess? Because it varies from Wikipedia to IMDb.
My first thought is 7 million.
Yeah, throughout both sites, it looks like it's anywhere between 7 and 9.25 million.
Okay, so not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, for what they did really well with low horror money at that time. Guess the gross?
I think you got to start telling me if it was successful because... hold on. Let me guess.
No. Let me tell you this. It was the second most successful horror film of 1985.
31 million.
24.9, so like 25. So close. But that just goes to show you, like, it's not that it didn't make a lot of money. It's just that there were a lot of good horror films out in 85. So the money was spread pretty evenly amongst them.
But still, man, that's a good return on a $7 million budget.
Right?
7 to 9, right? Whatever
Yeah, it's
it might
a
have
great
presumably
debut
been.
for Tom Holland.
Yeah, you're not going to complain about that.
No. I'm also not going to complain about the IMDb score or the scores on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm thinking you might.
Well, I mean, I've already seen them, so I'm not going to guess.
Okay, so 7.1 out of 10 for IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes, tomato meter, the critics give it 92% and the audience 76%.
I mean, the audience, if you look across Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, is pretty consistent, right? I definitely disagree with the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes.
I do too.
Yeah, it's entirely too high. I mean, if the critic score was kind of on par with the, review scores, 7.5 out of 10, I'd say, yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah. I would like to give it higher. But I think that's just because I really enjoy the movie. That doesn't mean that the movie's amazing. It just means I really enjoyed it. So if you look at like technical aspects, I think 7 out of 10 is pretty good. Moving to awards, sir.
All right.
I think we're going to have 2 of the same answers.
I'm fairly certain we are, sir.
Mm-hmm.
You start off least favorite character.
Evil Ed Thompson, played by Stephen Jeffries.
Not even a question.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it was the acting, the directing. He was obnoxious to no end. And honestly, dude, maybe the biggest deterrent of even enjoying or recommending this movie.
Yeah, there was a lot going against this character. This character is even in the remake, and I don't like him then. So,
like, why couldn't he have just been a normal best friend?
Yeah, and that's what they try and do with the remake. But like at that point too, you've got that stigma attached. Just remove that character and make it somebody completely different.
I mean, you don't have to remove the character, but like, he's so like the laugh, the awkwardness. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm even watching this and I'm like, even Charlie doesn't seem like he's made out to be some sort of loser in school. That I'm like, why is he hanging out with Evil Ed?
Yeah, it's weird. He occupies a space in this movie that he doesn't belong in. Favorite character?
It took me absolutely no time to write down Chris Sarandon as Jerry Dandridge.
Yeah.
This dude just oozes charisma like it's green goo.
And sand.
The sand doesn't ooze as well as goo, but yeah,
he's great.
He is so good.
I forgot how good he is in this movie. He's so much better than everybody else. I'm a big Roddy McDowall fan, and I remember Roddy McDowall being great in this movie, but Chris Sarandon, he just blows everybody out of the water.
I mean, Roddy McDowall probably would have been in contention for like second place. But
yeah, if you recast Jerry Dandridge, it probably would be Roddy McDowall as Peter Vincent for my favorite.
Absolutely. But like Chris Sarandon, I've said it multiple times, he just commands the screen when he is on camera.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And this might even be one of the reasons that I wasn't that big of a fan of the like full bore transformation version of the vampire.
Because you didn't get to see his beautiful face?
I mean, I was going to phrase it a little differently, but I was going to say, like, he plays this role so well that he doesn't need the practicals. He could have carried that with just the fangs and the eyes, right? Because he really does own that role. And it's not even just the charisma. There's also like a cockiness about it. Like when he's just walking in the alley, chasing them down, there's like it's almost arrogant, but like just a confident stride that he's like, I don't need to rush. I will ultimately get what I want. Right. He's so good. What about you?
Stephen Jeffries as Evil Ed.
Not a chance, you liar.
No, it's Chris Sarandon for sure. And you have to look at like how he's not just commanding in this movie. You look at other things he's done too. Like, yeah, this is 85. 2 years later, he's Prince Humperdinck in Princess Bride. A year after that, he's Detective Norris in Child's Play. A few years after that, he's Jack Skellington in The Nightmare Before Christmas. Like, he has something special.
See, I know him from The Princess Bride. It's a movie I watched quite a few times when I was a kid, and he was great in that too. But in a very different way.
Yes.
Very good actor.
Yeah, he also has a cameo in the remake, and the character is just called JD.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Is the remake worth watching?
Yes.
Well, don't give away too much.
Well, I'm going to I've got trivia when we're done our awards. I'm going to get into the series.
Trivia. Oh, wow. Okay, what did you have for your favorite or most memorable line?
I have your most hated line. You're so cool, Brewster.
You know what? It's got to be the source for me. I think if Amy said it or something, but coming from Evil Ed, I had a bias against it right from the start.
I knew you would, but it's anytime I think of this movie or somebody mentions it, I in my head say, "You're so cool, Brewster."
Okay.
What's yours, man? I'm curious. I honestly have no idea what it would be.
So it's actually a line by Peter Vincent, and it's a very subtle one, but I think, again, Roddy McDowall, fantastic in this movie as well, right? His delivery, I think, is what does it for me. Because it's the scene where Amy and Evil Ed go to his apartment to try and convince him to help.
Yeah.
And Amy says, he's the one that believes a vampire is living next door to him? And Peter Vincent's like, oh, yes. You know he is insane. It's just, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like the cadence, the delivery. If you go back and just watch how he says it almost like he's just like he really believes that maybe they don't know. like, oh yeah. You know he's insane.
Children, please listen to me.
It was so good.
That is so really good.
Again, I'm not running on nostalgia or, movie posters or trailer slogans or anything like that. But honestly, I laughed at that and literally rewound that scene to watch him say it again on my first viewing.
And that's why I love bringing up these movies for us to watch, because a lot of these I have like super intense nostalgic feelings for, and I know you haven't seen them. So it's like talking to somebody who's watching an outdated movie today, something that I hold very dear. I would like to bring up and make you watch so you can shit all over it.
I don't think I really shit all over this one, man.
No, you didn't. What's your memorable scene though?
So this one is more of a moment than a scene, but it is in the bedroom because when Jerry Dandridge comes out of the closet, he essentially says, "Be quiet. We don't want to wake your mom," and then throws him through a closet. Why are you telling him to be quiet if you're just going to throw him through a closet? And I mean, the way that they did that actually looked really good too, because they go to the side, they cut to the side of the closet, so you can see both the inside and the outside, and the kid is clearly upside down or a stunt double, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love that. And it's, again, I think it's the juxtaposition between telling him to be quiet and then making a stupidly loud noise.
Dude, that scene is so good. I was going to originally go with Amy in full vampire form when I mentioned this at the end of the previous episode. But watching that scene of Jerry and Charlie in Charlie's bedroom and just like him getting stabbed in the hand and being like, "Oh, fuck." And then hearing Judy pound on the door, he's like, "Oh God, I really fucked up now." And he just tries to like escape. He's like, I'm just going to fuck up the kid's car first. Then I'm going to call him and tell him. And then, yeah, you're like, oh God, it's like the smooth, calm, collected character panics 3 times in 40 seconds. And I loved it. It was pure comedy.
Not at all what you were expecting from the character.
No, not even close. Oh God.
Is that what you picked then? Or
yeah, it can't be anything else.
All right. Well, I mean, you said you had some trivia?
Yeah, I wanted to get into the film series because everybody knows that famous poster of like that weird stretched out vampire face over the house. Like the face is kind of made up of the clouds.
Even
and throughout the entire film, yeah, it's iconic. But you're waiting for that face throughout the whole movie, and it turns out it's a version of Amy's face at the end of the movie. But they reused that same artwork for the sequel poster, which is above a college dorm. Because in the sequel, Charlie and Amy are in college. There's a new vampire, a woman vampire, who has like a weird monster clique, kind of like Jerry did with Billy, but this one has a werewolf played by the guy that played the Wolfman from Monster Squad and Uncle Rico and Napoleon Dynamite. Pretty cool. It's a relatively decent horror sequel, of which there aren't that many. But yeah, they remade it in 2011, and the cast is phenomenal. For Charlie, you've got Anton Yelchin. Judy's played by Toni Collette. The Peter Vincent character, the one thing they did with that I absolutely loved was that they didn't try and do the same character again because it just wouldn't work. So they made him more of like a Chris Angel mind freak magician character. And with David Tennant in that role, he made it his own. So it didn't trash the original, but it was like an honest new version. And you know who plays Jerry Dandridge?
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell. And he does a great job. A really, really good job. Evil Ed, Christopher Mintz-Plasse. No? Right? Bad casting in that case.
I mean, it's hard to say. It really goes based on how you play the character. He could be fine if they just had him like a little bit of an awkward, best friend, but not so over the top like this Evil Ed.
Yeah, but he's more of just an asshole in this movie.
Oh.
They got Imogen Poots to play Amy. She does a great job. A little bit more of a dominant female character, which is awesome because I think that's what the movie really needed. Amy was just way too submissive. But after that, in 2013, so 2 years later, came Fright Night 2 New Blood. So it's Fright Night 2, but it's not a sequel to the remake. It's kind of a remake to the sequel of the original one, but gender of the characters are different, and there's a sexy female professor named Jerry Dandridge, Jerry with a Gerri, who's going after Charlie and evil Ed, and it's just awful. Like they have a Peter Vincent character in it. It's terrible. Amy's terrible. Everything about this movie sucks. So
that sounds weird.
It's really weird and unnecessary. Like, definitely watch the original and the sequel to the original, and definitely watch the remake, but avoid the Fright Night 2 New Blood release. I've been dying to try and find this on Blu-ray, the original one. And it's just, I think you can get it now, but for the longest time, it was impossible. For the 30th anniversary, they did a Blu-ray release of only 5,000 copies, and they sold out in 48 hours. They chocked it full of special features and everything, but couldn't afford to make new ones. And the cast were so pissed off before this that they hadn't done anything like a special edition that they ended up recording a bunch of different commentary tracks and released them for free online, almost like pirate commentaries. And then the Blu-ray had those on there too. So definite collector's item. I also have that Charlie Sheen auditioned for the role of Charley Brewster. And I don't think I would have liked the movie if he had gotten it. Do you know the meaning of Peter Vincent's name, where it came from?
I'm going to assume Vincent Price.
Vincent Price and Peter Cushing, yeah.
I'm not sure icons. Who that is.
What else do I have here? Some of this I've already mentioned throughout. All right, here's a little bit of video game trivia, which I'm sure you know.
Oh, probably not. Come on, man.
It's a Castlevania reference. I think a character that debuted in the first N64 one. A character named Charlie Vincent.
Yeah, nobody's playing the N64 one, man. There's a reason.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a nod to the movie. But the original ending to the movie was, you know how Peter references Charlie on air?
Yeah. He kind of just gives him like a shout out, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. Well, in this, Peter actually turns into a vampire on live TV and threatens Charlie before it cuts to the credits.
Why? Why would he do that?
I don't. That's the original ending. They cut it. Obviously, it didn't work. But they turned it into a pretty intense comic book run, with the movie being told over the first 2 issues, followed by another 20 after that. So I'm kind of curious to know where they took that story, but I'm not going to take the time to track down 22 issues of a comic book that's been over for a long time. Yeah, that's just the end of my little rant on trivia. Normally I'll say my take on the movie overall. It's pretty apparent, but I'm more so curious in hearing what you thought of it. Would you recommend it? What did you like? What did you dislike?
Honestly, I would recommend it. It's definitely not my favorite vampire movie like you seem to think, but it is absolutely a worthwhile watch in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Honestly, evil Ed is a huge deterrent, as I said earlier.
Yeah, it's a rough one.
If I wasn't watching it for the review, I might have seen him and turned it off and not been able to stick with it. I'd honestly say he probably brings the movie down an easy 1, like, full point. Like,
wow.
if he was more of a tame character, I think I would give this movie like an 8 out of 10. As such, I would say it's probably a 7.
Yeah, I would like to argue that, but I can't. That's a very valid statement.
And it's a shame too, because like Charlie and Amy were fine. Like they weren't great. Maybe they could have been cast better. Maybe they could have made a few better decisions in writing for them, but they weren't bad. But like Jerry Dandridge, Chris Sarandon just nails it. And if you're going to do a movie about a vampire, you gotta cast the vampire perfectly. And this was it. So yeah, I would recommend that anybody watches it who enjoys a vampire flick. It, like me, might not hit their, top 3 or top 5 favorite ever, but they're not going to come out of it thinking, well, I wasted my time watching that. No, it was a decent flick.
Yeah. I think one thing we can both agree on this movie is that it is a fantastic vampire movie for people that don't like to be scared.
Yeah, it's pretty tame on actual scary parts.
Yeah. So you don't have to worry about, having to cover your eyes at any scary parts. There's not really any jump scares. It's just a really dark vampire story that has some pretty decent comedy. So it's almost hard to call this a horror film. It's definitely more comedy than horror.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I love this movie. As I said at the beginning, it's my second favorite vampire movie of all time. The acting, other than Evil Ed, is pretty good. As you said, Chris Sarandon and Roddy McDowall steal the movie. There's no doubt about it. They're absolutely amazing. And it's just fun to watch. Like, honestly, after I finished this movie, I was excited to watch the sequel. Like, I just wanted to see more of these characters. So I think that shows if I would recommend it or not, because I can't get enough of it. It's a movie world that I really enjoy. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And like I said, a lot of laughs, some good effects, not really scares, but entertaining comedy horror.
Cool, man.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I love this movie. I'm glad to share it with you. Hopefully people that are listening that haven't watched it will be, they'll at least consider checking it out, because I think there's a lot of people out there that would enjoy this one that have missed it.
All right. So those are our thoughts on 1985's Fright Night. If you guys want to share your thoughts with us, you can hit us up on social media. We are on Twitter at BS Bargain Bin, Facebook.com/BS Bargain Bin, or you can send us an email or leave a comment in the YouTube section of the video, of course. A little bit of a different episode next week. I will not be on the show.
No, sir.
So, I don't know, maybe I'll be hurt if everybody thinks that that's like the best episode we've ever done. We will have a special guest on. It's one that our, longtime listeners will be familiar with. Mark from Beer Googles has graciously agreed to fill in for me as I take care of a few things. Ben, why don't you let our listeners know what the two of you will be watching next week?
All right. Next week, we are talking 1989's Society.
For Bill Whitney,
I've never been paranoid.
fear plays a large part in family life.
I feel like something's gonna happen. And if I scratch the surface, there'll be something terrible underneath.
He's afraid his sister
Could you zip me up, Billy?
is not what she seems.
God, Bill, what's the matter with you?
He thinks his friends are out to get him.
Make waves, Whitney. You're gonna drown.
People are what they are. Now you have to learn to accept that.
He's about to find out the truth
Why are you guys doing this to me, huh?
What, you've been living with these people all your life and you didn't know anything about this?
is far worse than he could ever imagine.
If you don't follow the rules, Billy, bad things happen.
Didn't you know, Billy boy? The rich have always sucked off low-class scum like you.
Uh-oh, Billy.
Clarissa? Don't be so intense.
Now, some people make the rules and some people follow the rules. It's a question of what you're born to.
You never were one of us.
You know, you really deserve what's gonna happen to you.
I don't think so. Wait. Can't you see they're setting you up for something?
You know how I hate to give you drugs. You're officially dead.
Don't go home, Billy.
No.
Bill Whitney is about to become one
Showtime, Billy!
with society.
Who are you?
Let me give you a hand, Bill.
In Beverly Hills, what you fear is only the beginning.
Anything for society.
All right. Until next time, have a good one, guys.
All the best, guys.